Good morning. Thank you for joining us on the first Friday e-call with K-State Extension. If you haven't heard, we've rebranded ourselves, so my branding mark isn't quite right. We're K-State Extension, not K-State Research and Extension. And the way I say it is because K-State wanted a closer affiliation with what we do in all 105 counties. The purpose of this First Friday e-call is to increase the local community's knowledge of the experts, the education, and the economic resources available to help small businesses and the communities who love them. As always, the call is being recorded, and you will get a link to the website and a copy of the presentation deck when it's ready. It's probably going to be this afternoon. Please let us know if this call matters to you and why. At the end of the call, there will be three very short questions. Number one, did you learn something today that you can use immediately? And then the best recommendation comes from people you know. So the second question is, how many people will you forward this information to? And third is an opening question about what did you learn that was most helpful to you? And so without further ado, I will introduce Brandy Willett, the Regional Director for the SBDC, and she's going to tell us an important topic, employee benefits for small business. Thanks, Brandy.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. Give me just a second here. I'm going to share my slide deck with you. Which for some reason it's harder to find now than it was earlier.
Perfect.
Yes, I didn't start at the beginning, so you guys got a little backwards there, but it'll all be fine. We'll make it through everything. If you have any questions, I'm totally open to that. I do a lot of this. But let me start by, I guess, introducing a little bit more about the Small Business Development Centers. Hopefully, you're all familiar with us. We have 7 regional centers throughout the state of Kansas. So we cover every county in Kansas, and we're really excited to do that. I'm particularly out of Wichita State, so I do the south central part of the state and do 12 counties there. But we really enjoy being a part of the economic development in the whole community where we work. So we're really excited to be invited here today and to talk a little bit about this. If you don't know us, there are 3 things that we do as centers. The first is we offer training. My center in particular does a lot of virtual training because, like I said, I cover 12 fairly good-sized counties throughout the state, but our webinars are available statewide. And we have some that we do every month, some that we do every quarter. But at the end of the year, we'll end up around 120, 130 webinars that we do, along with some in-person training and events, one of which I will talk to you guys a little bit about later today. The majority of our time is spent on no-cost one-on-one advising with small business leaders. And this goes from people who are idea phase, pre-venture, existing businesses, buy, sell, exit. We basically our motto is come to us and either we will help or we will find the right people to help, which brings us to our third. We do a lot of connections. We worked really closely with K-State Extension and a lot of the programs out there, especially for people, for example, who do grant writing, because I am not an expert grant writer, but they do incredible programming on that. So we do a lot of connection and just trying to make sure that businesses know who's out there in the community. And that's why we try to be so involved in all these things so that we know and can share. So if you have any resources that you would like us to share with small businesses or put on our radar, please don't hesitate to reach out. We'd love to do that as well. And as far as funding, we are funded by an SBA grant. Every state and territory gets an SBA grant, and then it's spread out. Wichita State is kind enough to match those funds for our particular center, and then the Kansas Department of Commerce also helps support this program. So it's a really good collaboration across the state of a lot of great funders who then also, are very involved in what we do, and we really appreciate that. So just always like to give them a heads up that they definitely help support small businesses throughout our state. But today we're talking about employee benefits. And the reason we really need to talk about this is because for a business to truly be resilient in this day and age, there have to be things that they do beyond the paycheck. And it's true for a solopreneur who's on their own, trying to make a go of it. And also for those who need to employ people, what does that look like? How does that work? It's a really scary place for a lot of small businesses. And I personally have seen a lot of people who had great ideas, were ready to go, but then they're like, I'm really tied to the job I have now because of the benefits. Or if they don't have a spouse that has benefits that they can use. So we really want to alert small businesses that there are ways that they can make their business stronger by investing in benefits, and that it doesn't have to be, the way they think it's always been done. And so we have really, as a center, spent a lot of time on this in the last couple of years, really building what we think is a better understanding of how benefits can work for a small business. And there are a lot of people who start their business on the side, build it up really well, but they have trouble letting go and making it their full time because they are comfortable letting go of those traditional benefits. And so we really want to find ways to empower them, to make them understand. I mean, it really is in a lot of ways just another part of that projection model, right? Understanding your money, where it's going, and what the benefits are, and how that pays back to your company long term. So, really understanding how investing in your company and the benefits that you offer, both to yourself and your employees, have dividends to the business is very helpful. We don't want people to feel like they can't grow or they can't expand because of those things. And, for some business owners too, it may be that they are personally going to stay at their full time job, but they're going to bring others in to run their business. So, what does that look like? And understanding all those models and how that money works in is something that we've worked really hard on. This shouldn't be, oh, hey, we have some extra money. Maybe we can look at it now. This should be an integral part of how they build and plan to build their business. So we start talking about this in the pre-venture point and try to build it into our business plan and our projection models so that they understand how that money flows and what it needs to be, and also helps them not underfund themselves up front, right? Because that's the worst thing a business can do. If you underfund yourself when you're going for your initial startup funds, you really have just painted yourself into a corner that it's really hard to get out of. So we want to make sure that businesses don't do that and that they understand that the variety of benefits can be really important to their business. So we do work really hard on that as well. And some businesses start out underfunded and they make it really well for a while, but when you hit that first hiccup or that first economic downturn, then it's really hard to turn it around. So we just want to make sure that businesses really understand what we're talking about when we're talking about benefits and what that means to them. Understand the full scope of benefits. And I think that's really important. I think that we need to think, oh, it's not just health insurance, right? What are all the things that my business, the people who are here day in and day out need to make this work for them? And so we really have focused in on the 5 pillars of wellness, right? Physical is easy, right? We see that one. And that's both in terms of, regular health insurance, but also workers' comp and all of those sorts of things. We really want people to think about the physical well-being of themselves and their employees. But beyond that, we also don't want them to ignore the mental and emotional health needs of their employees and make sure that that is built in as well. After COVID, I think we all have really recognized how easy it can be for these things to happen to people who, we didn't really see it before. And we want to acknowledge those things and make sure that there is a way within the business to allow people to have that flexibility and understanding of their needs. We also talk about the financial needs, not just now, but in the future. I think traditionally we've thought of small businesses as this is my retirement investment. I'm going to sell this. But that doesn't always work. And we can't really predict if you're looking long term, 20 years down the line, what the value of this business is really going to be in that economy. So we really want to start thinking about other ways to ensure our financial future, and then use the business as more of a bonus, right? If you can sell it well, that's great. Consider yourself a lottery winner in a lot of ways, but we want to make sure that people are investing in their financial future in other ways. There's also social and community needs, right? We need people to have benefits that allow them to be a part of their community and provide for their families as well. And we'll talk about some of those when we talk about some of the benefits out there. And then professional and career benefits. This is one I think small businesses don't think about, but a small business is so reliant on its people. So if you can come up with ways that they can build their professional selves better, that's a great way to build your business. And we want to build that into your model as well as we're moving forward. And again, I talk a lot about startups because I do a lot of that personally, but this is also for existing businesses that got started and just didn't think of these things. How can we really get behind this and build this into the way we build our business going forward? And anytime you're doing strategic planning, this should be a really important part of what they do. So one of the things that we need to think about when we're thinking about business is it worth the risk? It's all or nothing, and what is your risk tolerance? And there are different options based on that. And in a lot of different benefit models, is it something where you're willing to risk your retirement a little bit more because you really think you are building something sustainable, sellable, all those things? Or is it something where you want to make sure that you have really invested in your future in another way so that you aren't so much at risk? Same with health benefits. What is your risk tolerance? Are you there for a high deductible policy with some other coverage? Or are you wanting to make sure that you really have that sustained ongoing care? And it's a question that if you're going to be an employer, you need to ask not just about yourself, but also about the people you're hiring. And it's very funny, but in a lot of ways, industry will play into this. There are definitely some people who go into specific industries because they are more risk tolerant. So this is a really great conversation, and I love to have this one with business leaders. Like, what is the risk tolerance of you and the people who will be working with you so that we can really figure that out? And part of it too is, realizing that there are other options. Maybe a high deductible plan is good for you, but are there other ways that we can kind of help supplement that and make it a better place for you to go, and better, more comfortable for your employees? So really, that's one of the things that I think is a big part of this discussion. How do we think beyond the traditional? How do we think beyond what big corporations do? Because we're probably not going to do it the same at the small business level. And what does that look like? And the how of creative benefits. Benefits are need to be reimagined. And this is where small businesses are at the forefront, right? Because they are always reimagining. That's why they go into business for themselves. They either see a problem and they're going to solve it, or they see a better way to do things and are disruptive in this way. And so a lot of ways, our small business people are probably going to change the entire landscape of how benefits work in businesses. How do you offer the essential without breaking the bank? How are there new ways to look at it? There have been a lot of new startups recently. I'm sure many of you are aware in the whole space of, fee for service instead of insured benefits and those sorts of things. So there are definitely different ways to look at it. And I'm really excited to see what our small businesses will come up with, both as their companies and using it to support their small companies as they grow and flourish. So the how is where we can really get creative and really talk about what fits where you're going. One of the things that I find is that people, even though the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, and the healthcare.gov have been around for several years, people still don't think about it as a model for themselves and really explore those benefits and what they can mean to them. To shop the marketplace is a really good place for small businesses to start, right? What's out there? What's available at the individual level? How can it work for the employer, the employee, potential tax credits? How can we make this all work for your business? But it's a really good place to start. And solopreneurs, a lot of times, this is where we go first. what is available to you and your family, what makes sense for where you're going, what you're doing, and how you're wanting to grow. Um, I don't think the Affordable Care Act and market and healthcare.gov is going anywhere anytime soon. I think we've come to rely on it. And I think that there's a lot of options out there that small businesses should explore. So really, if people aren't looking there, helping them find that and get started that way, I think is a really good way to for them to just get in some initial information, right? That doesn't come from a salesperson. Although there are some salespeople who can help you find the correct plan for yourself on healthcare.gov, but addition, for early additional information and really understanding what you're working with healthcare benefits, it is a really good place to start. And I do really recommend that businesses explore it and just know what's out there available to them that way. We also are seeing a real rise in direct primary care as being an option for businesses. I think we think about it as concierge medicine. And as an individual, I'm willing to pay a premium to have that care, to have that person who's more available to me, who has more time for me. But a lot of direct primary care providers and clinics have really started building models that work really well for small businesses where they get a certain level of care, a certain basic level of care at a very reasonable price for their employees. And it also can help them as they move to, if there are, requirements as far as beyond insurance, if there are health requirements, testing, physicals, those sorts of things, direct primary care can be a great way to work with that. And if you bring both those types of business to a direct primary care physician, just seeing the way that they can offer that to you can be really helpful. You know, it's also something where sometimes the employer can pay a portion of the fee and then provide additional critical care insurance to an employee, and then the employee can contribute as well. There are also now, interestingly, nonprofits who have stepped up and said, hey, if you are willing to try this model and go this way, we'll help cover some of those premiums, at least initially, to kind of get you into the network. So employers can look at that as well as ways for people to work with and things to leverage as they start out, because a lot of times it's a ways to profitability. So what does that look like and how can we, use some of those groups out there to help us kind of get over that hump and get to those places? Not every direct primary care physician or clinic offers things that are made for businesses, but it is really something that we are seeing more about and definitely worth having those conversations and learning more about how that could work for your business and how it can cover, like I said, a variety of areas that you may not have initially been thinking about. So, again, having those conversations, especially with people within your own community or near your community, can really make a lot of sense. In secret, if you don't know, being a general care GP physician is not very profitable in today's world. So a lot of them are looking for ways to be able to provide better care at a reasonable price, but actually bring more of that in. I mean, so much of our healthcare dollars right now goes to billing and coding and the rejections through insurance and fighting those things back and forth. I mean, if you think about your own insurance issues that you may have had in the past or are currently having, imagine that at a provider level, right? It's like what you do multiplied by however many number of patients they have. So a lot of physicians are looking for new ways to provide better care, provide more service, and do it in a way that it can still be profitable for them. So direct primary care is definitely something that we're seeing more of. And along the same lines, there are also hospitals and outpatient centers that will offer a cash price for things. And that can be really helpful as well, for some things that are more routine. You can't prepare for those big emergencies this way. You definitely want to have some catastrophic insurance. But for things that you have some time, that there is something you can work around, talking to those groups and seeing what their cash prices are that may be available to you and your employees, it can be really, really helpful. And there's some again, startups working along that, trying to put together some marketplaces for those sorts of things where people can meet and talk about it. But it's even better, I think, it's just knowing the people in your community, the people around your community, if you can have those conversations. Because I mean, we all know right now is a really tough time for rural hospitals as well. So I'm not going to be a bit surprised if they move more in this way and look for ways that they can help supplement their income, do things that, maybe weren't services that they were necessarily looking to do, but could be profitable for them. You know, and most small rural hospitals are also small businesses. So any way we can help them as well would be really, really good for all of us and keeping that care in the community. So think a little bit about direct primary care, cash pay services, and how we can really utilize that. And it doesn't have to be for everything, but it can be a great supplement or a great starter level on a lot of things. There's also some game-changing benefits out there. There are people who are looking to make childcare a benefit for employees. And that's a really great idea. We all know that childcare is becoming harder and harder to find, having a huge economic impact, because if we can't have quality, affordable childcare, it is impossible for both parents to work generally. I mean, some people are blessed and they have family and the like, but really as an overall economic driver, we really have to look at childcare. So looking at childcare as a benefit, as something you can offer your employees, and also in that way, it makes it again a little more stable for the childcare providers, right? They know how many slots they need. They have a pay system that isn't based so much on individuals, but more on a business model. And that can be really beneficial for, again, those small business child development centers. So how can we look at that as an employee benefit and something that you can offer? And there's been a lot of on-site daycares for bigger businesses, but it doesn't have to be things like that too. It could be a local center that saves so many slots for you because you're going to pay this much for it, but it's a discounted rate because you're paying for a certain number of slots, and you can share that cost with your employees. So looking for things like that that can make it easier for your employees not only to come work for you, but to make it in every day, right? Those are the things that we're looking for. Small businesses are so affected by, each and every employee because there are fewer people to spread the work around. So we want to make sure that we are looking for things that can really make a difference and think about the difference that can make to the bottom line of a small business on both sides of that. So what are new benefit ideas that are out there and how can we explore those to build for our employees? I think it's going to become more and more important as we move forward. Also, I'm hearing some about housing as something that, businesses are looking into as well. Is there a way that we can invest a certain portion in a local housing development that we know will be affordable for the amount of our employees are making? And there's just a lot of ways to get involved in your community and help build that infrastructure that, may not be coming fast enough on its own. How can we come together and make those things work? And again, it's beneficial not only to the business because it makes their employee pool better and stronger, but it benefits the community, but it also benefits, the individuals who are here and want to build a life in these communities. How do we make that possible for them? So really looking at those new ideas. And I think they are game-changing benefits. And if you are the first one to offer these things, because as small businesses, they can move faster, right? You can implement a change because it's just a few people or one person who's making the decisions, and that's going to put you ahead of some of those bigger employers that we think of traditionally because bigger business is just slower. They may have a board of directors, they may have people who are not local who actually own or make decisions for the businesses. So as small businesses, I think really looking outside the box, looking for that competitive edge that you can offer because you can move faster, you can make adaptations that bigger business may not be able to make. As we look at workforce issues, and we've all seen the statistics, we know that workforce is going to be an ongoing problem for us. So if there are ways that we can find to adapt and really build our businesses in ways that help support those things within our communities, I think that will be a true game changer for small businesses. And here's a little bit more about childcare as a benefit. It could be stipends or subsidies that you offer to your employees. It can be backup care. This one I really like. You know, what are some temporary helps for emergencies that you can have? And that could be not only for people who traditionally use childcare and use a traditional model, but need backup when child's sick or their provider's sick, or providers need vacations too, right? I tell every childcare center I help develop, make sure you're building that into your model. So having that temporary backup care in those ways, but also for those employees who maybe don't traditionally use it. You know, maybe grandma is our primary caregiver for a child, but you know, they get sick too. So what do we have? What do we have as backup? How are there ways that we can help, you know, bridge those gaps? And I again think that's a really great place where small business can come in and really bridge gaps that may not be considered by other groups. And again, make themselves more competitive in the job market. And then, you know, just finding ways to build independent care accounts, FSAs. There are a lot of people who can help you build those for even a very small business with just a few employees. And they don't have to be full-time either. You know, you can still build in those accounts and just make it easier for your employees to pay for these things, because we know childcare is incredibly expensive in this day and age. So we need to make sure that we are giving our employees every benefit we can to provide for that if it's something that they need. And this is an interesting one. As we were building our benefits and wellness expo this year, I was actually approached by this, but paid leave is a government benefit. You know, it's hard for small businesses to offer paid leave to their employees, but there are programs that the government can look at, and we are looking at here in Kansas. We're going to have a big presentation on this, um, and how that can really help people understand and work for a small business in ways that they may not otherwise feel comfortable because they wouldn't have those benefits of paid leave. So what does that look like? How does that affect us? I'm really looking forward to that discussion at our conference at the end of October. But just throwing that out there, that there's a lot of things along this same line, right? That we maybe haven't spent a lot of time thinking about in the past, but we need to come up with better solutions. And I think this can be really helpful for small businesses who need, you know, those need the employees, but need the employees to feel supported and that they have that safety net to come through too. So I think this will be a really interesting discussion. I can't say that's coming anytime soon, maybe, but it's really great to have the discussion. And there are several states out there that do offer this already. So there's a model out there. It's been tested. There are several different ways to do it. So you know, it is definitely a possibility. And I think it's something that, again, small businesses need to be aware of and thinking about, because it can be something that could be really beneficial to them. And so it may be something that they want to support. Retirement options. Yeah, this is a big one. I cannot tell you how many small businesses I have sat down with, and their retirement plan really is, I'm just going to sell the business. But things change over time. From when you start to when you exit, there can be major economic shifts. There can be major population shifts where you are, so the value may not be the same. And to be honest, a lot of small business owners have worked so hard for so long that they think that that adds value to their business. But honestly, the more work that you are putting into your business every day, the less it's actually worth to a buyer. And that's something that's really hard for a business to get, a business owner to get their head around, right? It's the more work you're putting in, the more hours you're putting in as the owner, the less time you are taking a vacation, getting away, shows that your business is really not sustainable without you. And so we really need to think about that, both as an exit strategy and what it looks to build the value of that business, but also what are your other options? How else can you support yourself so you're not so at risk of those things? We really want to focus on those things because business value can change a lot. So we need to make sure that we are looking at other options. You know, Social Security, hopefully, great benefit as well. But, you know, we want to make sure that we are hedging our bet on this one, is what I'm going to call it, because it really is important. Know that. Also, I think it's important for business owners to know that you can't sell your business on the potential that it has. You know, nobody's going to fund it. Mm, Hopefully, nobody's going to buy it based on that potential. It's got to be actual terms and things. And we want to make sure that we're separating out business expenses from personal expenses and making sure that we have a clear value there. But let's look at other ways to do this. And not just for you, but also for your employees, right? What do they have when they retire? People don't think enough about their retirement and how much longer we're living, how much more money you need, how much it benefits you to start early rather than later. So, really stopping and talking to someone who can help you plan these options. And again, I think a lot of people just have this perspective in their head that this is for big businesses. Big businesses offer 401 K or 401ks that they offer a way for people to invest in their retirement that we can't do as small businesses. And that just really isn't the case. Um, we also, for those of you who are on early, we talked a little bit about people who actually fund their startup through using their retirement account. And I think one of the greatest things about that is that requires them to set up a new retirement program in their new business to reinvest and regrow those funds. And that's helpful to everyone involved in the business. There's a lot of ways to go about that, a lot of people who can help make that happen. But having those conversations is really important. And again, knowing what's right for you and your employees and how we need to build those programs around you because it's scary. And a lot of times when we're talking money or we're talking scary long-term things like this, we don't talk about it because we have that avoidance factor. And we've got to stop thinking that way. We really need to start planning from the beginning, how it's all going to end and how we're going to bring it all together. So we really want to make sure that those options are out there. Yes, Michael, that's a very great comment about business valuation and understanding, how value is built in your business. And I think that's an important part of your retirement options too, learning to build that. So if anyone wants to have those conversations, I would love to have those conversations. So please send them our way. But we also want this, I just think of this as again, your backup plan, your business value should almost be your backup plan, and this should be your primary. So really thinking about your retirement options, what you want to do, where you want to go, because nobody wants to really downsize their life terribly when they retire. So we want to make sure that they have options out there. And here's a breakdown of some of the basic retirement options out there. There's so many things available to people. So we want to think about how it can work for your small business. If it's high earner or solopreneur, what does that look like? How do you put that money aside in a 401k versus a simple IRA, which is simple, flexible, employers can contribute, do match funding, some of those sorts of things. And then the more advanced IRAs, if your team grows. And I think that's important too. A lot of businesses may think about this at some point, and then they just lock in that model going forward. And nothing in a business should be static, right? Anytime we're static, we're failing to prepare, we're failing to adjust. And in those ways, we are probably preparing to fail. So we want to make sure that we continue to look at these things as your business grows and reassess your needs, your employee needs, and what's going on in the economy as a whole. So, not locking things in, continuing to have those conversations, the same way you would with any insurer. You should be having this with your retirement professionals. What is the ongoing conversation that's going on? And not only doing that yourself as the solopreneur or as the business owner, but if you have employees, making sure that that is available to them as well. So they are having those ongoing conversations and making sure that they really feel like they are supported and have that substance so that they can move forward. Because at the end of the day, I always go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We don't feel like we have those basic psychological needs in place, right? You have employees who don't have insurance, someone in their family gets sick, hurt, they can't think beyond that. They can't move beyond that. And then the safety and security of the long term, what does that look like? Where is my child? Where am I going to live? What does my retirement look like? Those two basis are things that we as employers can really help provide for people to make sure that they can move on to self-actualization and really become their best selves in your business, which always affects your bottom line. And that's something we really, I think, need to spend more time thinking about as business leaders. Wellness, security, people being able to put their full selves in, feel supported, feel like they can come in and really make a difference is based on those needs. And that's why benefits are so essential. Um, just covering those bases and making sure that people have that support and that feeling, and also making sure that they can talk to you about it. I know for some people that's harder than others, but making sure that you have that open door so that you are understanding what their needs, wants, desires, where they are can really help. Because if people don't feel supported, they don't feel like you're listening, and that all of the programs that you have are based on you instead of them, it can really hold them back. And this is also true for solopreneurs, right? If you're worried about yourself and what happens if I get sick, or what happens if, you know, this bottoms up, what's going to be my long term? Don't underestimate it for yourself either as a small business owner, because that definitely affects you. No matter how good you are at hiding it, keeping it in the background, it has a definite effect. And we want to make sure that we are doing that, and that we're providing for those things, because you have a lot of things that are going to be based on your self-esteem and your self-actualization and selling your business to customers and clients, in that rapport. So we want to make sure that the bases are covered so that we can help you become successful in those other ways. So um, yeah, it's a cost, but it really is an investment, both in yourself and in your people. And this is why I think understanding your benefit options is so important for small businesses. Right. You also want to remember that you as the owner can't pour from an empty cup. And I've seen this time and time again. People will do all sorts of things for their employees. I would say retirement funding is one of the ones that I'll see where, yeah, we've got a retirement program. Our employees, they've got all these options, but they themselves didn't invest, or they themselves didn't put their family in that position to really benefit from these things as well. So we want to make sure that the small business owner is supported as well. And so it's not all about you, but don't forget yourself either. I think it's really easy to go one way or the other, and it's finding that balance and finding how that can work for you. Or again, if you're a solopreneur, not forgetting about yourself and the whole getting it done mindset that we get into. So as far as first steps, if people are interested in finding out more, we are doing our second Benefits and Wellness Expo. We did our first one last year, and we had a lot of providers sign up. Unfortunately, we had fewer small businesses come through than I was really hoping for. So this year we are adding an entire education component to the event, and I think that's really going to help. We're going to have discussions with primary care physicians, where they explain how their model can work for businesses. We are going to have retirement groups come and talk about the various programs they offer. We're going to have a discussion about paid leave as a state benefit and what that could look like and what's going on with that in our state. Childcare as a benefit. We're going to have people talking who are, basic insurance providers, talking about the different models and the way that they are not captive providers, so that they can offer you a wide variety of solutions. And along with that, we are going to have vendors in all these markets that you can come in and talk to one-on-one, gather their information, ask them questions, and really discuss, or at least start the discussion about what's right for you, what's right for your employees, what's right for your business. It's a come and go for business leaders. We're hoping you'll take part in some of the education, but if nothing else, just come through, talk to these people, make these connections. If you're not local here in Wichita, let us know if you'd like information from specific groups that come out. We would be glad to make those connections and provide things, but we really wanted to just have that time for people to be able to connect and ask questions. Thank you, Nancy, for putting that in the chat. I appreciate it. And then what to expect. Again, you meet key vendors, attend education sessions that, really focus in on what you're wanting to learn more about. come and go, stay all day. We'll have food trucks on site. That's one of the great things about being part of Wichita State. They've got a great food truck group that comes in and pops up for these things. And so it's really beneficial. We are not on Wichita State's main campus. We're at the Metroplex actually north. So we're right off Highway 96 if you're coming in from out of town, and free parking. You don't have to worry about any of those things that you would on campus. So, come and join us. And even if you think, hey, I'm only going to be there 15, 20 minutes and you stay all day, it's not a problem. We appreciate it. Currently, we are still looking for people who would like to provide vendor tables, talk about what they offer to small businesses as far as benefits or benefit support. We still have speaking opportunities available and sponsorships. So this is a QR code to that. If anybody is interested, or if you'd like to pass it on to someone else you think should be there, we would love to have them. This is such a great event for us because in a lot of ways, not only can we support the small businesses that need to learn about benefits, but we can support the small businesses that provide benefits. So we really wanted that to be available. If you are not someone who actually provides benefits to small business, but you want to be a part of this, sponsorship opportunities are available, and we'd love to have you there and showcased in that way for sure. And if you'd like to contact us, this is our information. It's both request advising. If you know someone who needs the one-on-one advising and would like that time at no cost to them, we'd love to do that. If you're interested in our training, the second QR code was for that. I'd really encourage you to follow us on social. Like I said, we haven't opened up the attendee registration yet. Although I'm going to tell you a secret, if you show up that day and you haven't registered, we'll get you registered that day because we want to make this as available to small businesses as we possibly can. But if you have any questions, definitely do that. And I would really encourage you to follow our socials. The people in my office do an amazing job of getting all our information out there, all the ways that we can help. And I think it's a really beneficial. And, even if you don't need it yourself, please share. We'd love to help all the people that and connect with in all these ways we can.
Wonderful. Thank you. I put the location in there too, but
Thank you.
it sounds like a great event, opportunity to get your questions answered all at once. Who has questions about the event or what Brandy presented?
And again, we offer that no cost advising. You just need to register online. So if there are questions or things you'd like to talk through, I would love to do that. I also have other advisors who work with me who can help, in a variety of these ways. So if you know people who just need to talk these things through and figure out a plan, we would love to be a part of that as well. Or anything else business related, right?
It occurs to me that I've been putting the SBDC training link for 2 of the locations, but there's 8 locations, so I don't know how that's going to work. But anyway, maybe it'll tease you to go look for them in the other locations.
And we can get you connected as well. We work really well together as a network. So if you start with me, but there's someone closer to you, we'll get you set up with them as well. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Brandy. And Brandy is joining us from a national conference. We scheduled this a year ago and she didn't know what conflicts she would have. So I really appreciate her making the effort to be here with us. Kelly Hansen is here from the Department of Commerce, and I've been primed to know that she has something to share.
Hello. Yes, thank you, Ron. Ron stopped me yesterday when we were at a CRETA conference and asked me to jump on and share some grant deadlines and some programs that we just recently opened with the Office of Rural Prosperity. So, real quick, just want to run down these opportunities for you to mark your calendars or start thinking about. Number 1 is our seed grant. It opened last week. Those are for counties under 5,000, and there's a specific list of counties to see if you're eligible. Those are done by statute and legislative action. They're not specifically counties we chose. So the projects are, if you have anything for childcare and senior programming, community vibrancy, some food retail or library projects, these are $25,000 grants. The applications are due October 28th. And the projects must be completed by December 31st of 2026. So maybe some smaller projects, you can actually do up to 3 different projects in your county in those categories. So go ahead and take a look. We did a webinar last week, and there are some office hours that are open up on our website. So kansascommerce.gov and then just /seed, and it will put you to all of that information, including the application and application guidelines. I do want to mention that the application is going to be in a different platform, so you do have to go on and register for an account. So don't wait until the last day to get on and fill out your application, because you may or may not be able to get registered in time. So go ahead and take a look, and at the very least, just go ahead and set up your account. Our HEAL program will be opening up again in October. So if you have a building that is in your downtown that is vacant and underutilized, that's a great opportunity for you to take some private dollars and get those matched dollar for dollar to get some very necessary improvements and a business operating in that location. That is a stipulation. You have to have a business plan and something ready to go into that business. So that way, at the end of the grant period, you have taken a vacant, empty building and turned it into an operating business. That has a 2-year time frame. So it's not like you have to have it. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. We understand that, especially with building renovations and business planning. So a little bit long term. The other program that we're really
Kelly,
excited.
Can I
Yes.
interrupt you with one thing? It occurs to me that it might be applicable right to here. Somebody complimented me just this week on how helpful KSU Tab had been with their unutilized downtown buildings. And so they're there maybe to help you set up for success with that grant.
Yes,
Very
absolutely.
complimentary services that will help you analyze what things that you need to do and what other grants there are available besides this grant. So I'm happy to refer you to that too. Thanks, Kelly, for letting me interrupt you.
Yeah.
I think they're very
Absolutely. Anytime, Nancy. You've got great information to add. Our Rural Champions program, which is one of my most favorite programs, it is wrapping up its 2nd cohort here at the end of this month. But it will continue for a 3rd year. We are hoping to open up those applications this fall and aiming at kind of the start of those the next calendar year. If you have a project that you are tackling in your community that you need some more capacity, you need someone to help out to push this project either over the finish line, get it set up for success, and you have somebody identified. This is for capacity building. You will be given a stipend for wages of $20 an hour for 20 hours a week for a full year, to either expand somebody's position, maybe from part-time to full-time, or to create a new position in your community to help with this one specific project. So you do have to have the project identified and also the rural champion identified for your application. So that's something to be thinking on now. We have done so many different projects, and lots of different challenges have been tackled. So again, head over to our website at kansascommerce.gov and type in rural champions, and you will get to see what the past 26 champions have started on or completed, and hopefully maybe you'll be one of the next 12 to 14 we select for 2026. The other thing that I just wanted to mention is the RAWS application. RAWS is in its last year, and we are accepting applications for anybody in your community that's recently moved to your community that can benefit from that program. Applications are being accepted until September 30th. And again, all of the resources are on our website. You can, and contact information, Sheena runs our RAWS program, and her contact information is there. So reach out to her if you have any specific questions on if your county is eligible, if you're a sponsor, how to get employers to sponsor this type of thing. But you do need to act quickly because September 30th deadline is coming up. So those are the most immediate things that we have going on. As always, sign up for our newsletter, our monthly newsletter. We try and keep all of this stuff at the forefront. Grant opportunities, not just from Commerce, but from anywhere, as well as events just like First Fridays and grant writing workshops that Nancy put on across the state. So I do encourage you to sign up for the newsletter.
Very good. Thank you. Ron was right. That was lots of good information. I'm glad you're keeping it in front of us. It can be overwhelming, and so we kind of need to be reminded at the time that we need to know it. Thanks so much for being here, Kelly. So I announced this last month, but I think this is interesting. We have a local community, Atchison, Kansas, is hosting a Thursday morning wake-up call, AI wake-up call at 7 a.m. on Thursday, September 18th. They meet the third Thursday of every month, and they have a online version. For those of you that are interested and curious about AI, it can be very helpful, but it can also be very inaccurate. So learn to use it well. It's a great tool. If you use it well, it will get better as we use it. And I've shared that Facebook page there. The second thing is we do have a remote work online this month. I'm having a hard time talking and thinking at the same time. Remote work on Wednesday this month is Cody Beasley is going to be talking about starting a remote business from scratch. So starting not just a small business, but a remote business from the ground up. We do have an in-person grant writing meeting or grant writing training in St. John, Kansas. The information is in our events page. It will be October 7th from 9:30 to 3:30 if you're close to that and need that is helpful to you. Let's see, and we also have online grant writing basics this month, September 16th and 18th, and we'll have another one in November. It's not online yet. But we will have an online grant writing class in September. If you do not have access to Kansas Leadership Center training, if you're a small business and you don't have access otherwise, be our partner. And I've put a link in there that gives you the opportunity to take advantage of our K-State's transformation grant, so we can make that training available to you and free to you. All you have to do is pay any travel costs if you decide to do it in person. It's great training. And if you have a statewide event or asset that you would like to promote, get that to me and I'll put it in the First Friday meeting notice, which is going out to about 1,700 Kansans every month. I do try to make them statewide though. Does anybody have, in the time I've been talking, does anybody else have something to share? Have you thought of anything? If not, our next call will be emerging economic data around trails in Kansas. For the last several years, we've been talking about trails and the economic development benefit of trails. And Mike Scanlon is going to share that with us next month. And so with that, then I'll leave you with a thought for the day. Maya Angelou once said, "Hope and fear cannot occupy the same space at the same time. Invite one to stay." Thanks so much for being here.